Good day, good day. I wanted to cover a topic that I've been having to address with a lot of people recently contacting me about getting a license as far as a home care assisted living facility. So what I wanted to do was put together this quick presentation to let people know that it's probably in their best interest to lease opposed to buying when you first starting off, and we're gonna cover some of the top 10 reasons why you should buy first, why you should lease first, and then potentially buy if your model, if what you're trying to do works and you're in the right community and you see that you're able to staff, license, and then actually get residents in this particular community with your specific model, then you start looking to purchase. So that's some of the stuff we're gonna cover here today. So let's get right into it. The top 10 reasons to lease, not to buy your first residential assisted living home. While first time operators should lease a single family home for 6 to 8 bed residential assisted living in today's real estate market. Let's go. So the first advantage is the capital advantage of leasing. It's a low barrier to entry, so that means you don't require, it doesn't require so much more headache that when you're going into purchasing a property does. I mean, when I purchased my first property, it probably took us from the initial conversation with our lender. I think we spoke with our lender first, then got a real estate agent. Well, had a real estate agent, couldn't do nothing with the agent because we had to get pre-approval to finding the property. That probably took 3 to 6 months. Finding the property, probably 3 months, and then actually getting approved for the loan after pre-approval. We had to go through countless days of, the exchanging paperwork, background stuff, and then I was an entrepreneur. I wasn't an employee, so I wasn't a W-2 employee. So I had to have way more information. They wanted way more information from me, and I was just getting an FHA loan back then. So, but it still took a lot of paperwork. My accountant had to, approve different things. It just took a lot out of us to get just a basic single family home, to do the assisted living. But now, if I was to do it through the lease, if I'd have said back then, if I'd have just went the lease route, I'd have been in the property in the licensing process and probably had some residents by the time I'd have at least got, what I mean, to the place where I was purchasing the property. So if I'd have went the lease route, I'd have probably been in business a lot sooner. So I didn't know that now. I mean, I didn't know that then. I know it now. So we move accordingly, and that's why we here expressing to you guys, the advantages of leasing requires significantly less of upfront capital, and again, we had to come to the table. I think we had to bring like 15,000 to the table. We had to pay closing costs. We had to pay different inspections. Then we had to, once we bought the property, we had to do repairs. The basement was leaking. So we had to spend like at least the first walking in the door, we probably spent another $5,000 on top of, buying the property. I'm talking about after we got the keys. So that's the buying part. That's the buying process. Now, if you're going, and that was through FHA, and we bought as is. But if you're going through the leasing process, only thing you're basically going to need is, your credit, first month's rent, and a deposit. Those things might, vary a little bit based on the property that you're trying to get and the terms that you're trying to negotiate. But it's just a better way, it's just a huge capital advantage and time advantage when you're thinking about lease versus buying. And if it didn't work for us, we'd have been stuck. So at least with you guys, you had the opportunity to make some mistakes. Not saying that you're gonna make mistakes, you want to make mistakes, but you're gonna make mistakes, and you want to be able to have some easier exit if it doesn't work out. But we'll get into it. So, simplify financing and testing your model. No commercial loans needed. Buying requires income verification, DTI ratios, years of tax returns, and a commercial plan if you're doing some building. Um, or you leasing out a commercial property, leasing can often be done with a personal credit, income, and far less paperwork. And what you get to do is test before committing. You're still learning how to market your facility, how to manage staff, how to pass inspection. Leasing lets you prove your model without being tied down for 30 years. And that's what I'm saying. That's the important part. Risk management, and speed to market. So every business got risk. Like, don't let nobody on the internet tell you that it's risk free and all this and all that. Assisted living is real estate. And real estate has a lot to do with location. It's all about location. So if you're not in a great location, and if you haven't tested that location, if you haven't tested that particular market that you in, you don't really know what you're getting yourself into. So, and if you believe in it, you did your research and you want to move forward, I will always suggest, if possible, to lease before purchasing. Because if you do run into some different things, if for instance the business doesn't work, your lease eventually ends. You know what I mean? You could rent it out you could sublease it or do something. You could make some kind of money off of it. If the assisted living situation doesn't work, and then you got to exit when that lease is up. With If you buy the house, obviously you buy it. Say this is not your house that you're living in. You don't want to live in. You might have to eventually move into this house. Or you might assume this second loan if you already have a first mortgage. And now you got to pay this monthly payment, and you have no residence. So that's just some of the things you want to think about when it comes to risk management and the things that you're going to be, risking. But the opposite side is that you're going to get to market much faster. You can again, you can if you have a good credit score, I say like if you have a 650 and up credit score with about a, five to $10,000 down payment, I think you could probably get it, and it probably in any good market. I'm not sure what state, whatever state you in, with a 650 credit score and about $10,000, you could get into a decent property in America in a good assisted living community, a potentially good assisted living community for the property that has at least 4 beds. So that's at least six, 4 rooms, 6 beds, most likely four rooms. They're going to be two bathrooms, probably two full bathrooms, and the chances are you're going to have some living space either upstairs, like an in-law suite, or downstairs in the basement for your caregiver. So you could probably get in, and you could probably get into this property within the next, if you find it, like it, you and the landlord, come to an agreement. You could be in a property within 30 to 45 days from hearing this, having this, listening to this, this presentation. So that's the difference. If you heard this presentation and you wanted to get into the assisted living business today, and it's August the 5th or 4th, and you're wanting to buy, you won't be into nothing until August, probably February, or January at the earliest, to purchase, finding the property, getting approved and everything, and then getting the property, and then stuff like that. So it just takes so much more time. And you'll be the people who lease, by the time you get before you get keys in hand, they're going to probably already have residents. So that's just again something that we want to stress: to speed the market. Flexibility and financial benefits, negotiation flexibility. Landlords may offer rent abatement while you wait for license, so that you can pay a little less than what you would pay, and let them know that you'll increase the rent once you get licensed, and stuff like that. You can actually negotiate this stuff with them. Um, they can put certain amount, if y'all could put certain clauses or um amendment or addendums in the contract that says this is a rent to own lease, a lease to own option, and a partial part of my rent can go towards the down payment or towards the purchase of the property. Um, the landlord can approve cosmetics and structural modifications right there on the spot. Usually, there's not going to be much. It's only usually just grab bars, and you might, if there's some chairs. I mean, if there's some stairs, you might have to add a stair lift. Things that do not alter the property, they only really bring the property value up. Um, And banks just they just don't do that. You're just not gonna have that flexibility, those options to negotiate and things like that. Either you're buying it or you're not. You're not gonna have to deal with property taxes, no long-term debt, no interest rate hikes. If occupancy struggles in year one, leasing protects your downside. So if you can't, fill a property, just families aren't digging the location or digging your setup. I mean, you can go back to the drawing board. You can get a lease up and try again in the future. But a property, with a purchase home, you're stuck. Again, with zoning protection and growth strategy. Safer zoning contingency. If denies your RL use lease, you can walk away. Purchase, you're stuck with the house you can't license or use. This is one of the biggest risks for a new RAL buyer. Um, Scale when ready. Start with their lease, get licensed, get full consensus, generate profit, then buy the next one with the proven income, track record and confidence. Leasing first allows you to learn the business before making long-term property commitments. Lease versus buy. Key comparisons. Upfront, low, buying high. So when you say low, upfront cost, we saying like 10,000 at the most. Like upfront to get the keys in hand. Upfront cost when it comes to buying a house, the closing costs, the which includes your agent's fees and everything like that. Your down payment, your inspections, all of that stuff. So I'm saying at least 20 grand out of pocket before you get the keys in hand. Speed to launch is quick. With the lease, you're gonna be like I said, you could be from hearing this presentation, you could have keys in hand by mid September, working with your working with the state to get licensed. If you already made sure that you picked the right area, like no HOAs and the zoning is good, because you can look at this stuff obviously before you make the close say yes to the lease. Um, and you could be working with the what we got out here in Maryland, the OACQ, to start working it, submitting your application and getting your license process going. So by next month, like literally by like October, you could be having that conversation with OACQ or your department of agent or whoever is over your licensing in whatever state you're located. You can actually be having that conversation with the lease play much more quicker than if you went to with the buying route. Financial risk, if it goes sour, you only in say 10, $15,000 all in. Maybe you spent some marketing, maybe you did some modifications and you got the lease. um okay, and I mean if you don't want to break the lease, obviously if you don't want to damage the relationship or get any kind of fees from breaking the lease early, you can't be in for the full lease. So that is still lower than if it doesn't work and you buy the property. You did all this to this property, you bought this property, you went through this whole lending process, and you have a 30-year mortgage on this property, and it doesn't work. You're in for like maybe four or $500,000 versus 25 30,000 at the end of the lease. If you can't make no money off the lease after, you don't pass inspection or whatever the case may be, that it doesn't work out. Downside, there's no equity. That's the only real downside of leasing is you don't have any equity in the property. Um, Buying, you usually do have some equity. You might walk in the door getting some equity. Most of the chances you are getting probably like 10% just walking in, and then over time you'll get some more equity. But this isn't the type of business where equity is a big deal. You're making your money off occupancy, so you're going to be focusing on making money from your residents, not you know equity over time. This strategy obviously is ideal for first time operators. For if you're buying, you might want to make sure you got some experience or you're working with an experienced partner. Um, and that's who buying. That's who should be buying the properties for assisted living. So it's success story. Leasing wins. A Maryland operator leased a five-bedroom home, get zoned in two zoning approval in 2 weeks, which is possible. It could take time. It could be no weeks. It could be no weeks if you find it first and don't even you make sure before you even sign a lease. State license in 90 days. That's reasonable in Maryland, and then 90% within 6 months. So that's 90% occupied in 6 months. They reinvest their profits to buy their next RAL. So you can essentially, like we said, find a property, a five-bedroom, go through zoning, get state license in 90 days, say 90 to 120 days, get full within 6 months of that license, or at least 90% full, give, 4 or 5 beds occupied, got your you figured out how to get residents, you figured out how to staff it, and now it's time to start looking for action. You're making a profit, you got some income coming in, your lease is being paid, you're not coming out of your pocket anymore for bills for this business. It's all being paid for through your residents, through your profits from your residents. And now we start having a real conversation about buying. Some so a cautionary tale: the buying pitfall. Someone bought a 400,000 home before zoning. Zoning denied. No residents. Still paying 26 up to $3,000 a month, and monthly mortgage, and a costly mistake for skipping lease first strategy. So this is just like some things to make you want that you want to think about when you're going through these. When you strategizing about what you're going to do as far as how you're going to approach assisted living. When to lease versus when to buy. When leasing makes sense. First REL setup, limited funds, uncertain about location, need to test operation, want a quick launch. When buying makes sense. You already operated one successfully. You confirmed zoning and writing. You found a turnkey home. You want full control and long-term equity. So there's a point there. You confirmed zoning before you bought the property. You've already operated one successfully, and then you found a turnkey property, a property that you don't have to do much to get up and running. These are some important points to think about. Your path to success. Get zoning approval first. Contact your local planning and zoning department and get written confirmation for a 6 to 8 bed assisted living and allowed at that address. Do this before signing any lease or contract. And I mean, I'm saying 6 to 8, but you can also for whatever range you want. If it's 4 to 6, 8 to 12, whatever you're looking at, you just want to make sure you're gonna get approved for that zoning. Structure your lease wisely. You look for 3 to 5 year terms, landlord approval for REL use, operation option to renew or purchase, permission for renovation, and early exit clause. This is how you want to structure your lease. Focus on operations, not property. Your first home is a launch pad. It's about experience, systems, and success, not equity. Like I said, this isn't a business where you're thinking about equity. You're more focused on operations, systems, and starting lean and being smart and generating cash flow through the actual business. Then expand with confidence and cash flow. Need help? We'll help you from we'll help you. All you gotta do is give us a call, contact us, and you guys can go from there. We're actually running a special this month. So $750 for the assisted living training, where it's usually 2,500. So yeah, feel free to reach out. We look forward to working with you and just take this stuff into consideration. Peace.